Next time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Empowering Pastors and Leaders Training. It's going to be a great day. How many of you have been enjoying the book that we've been going through? Not many of you. The name of the book is called Boundaries for Leaders by Henry Cloud. It has been a phenomenal book as we've been going through. It's the difference between what is allowed and what is created. You and I have the absolute authority to create and to allow. You know what was interesting? I was getting on to finish my notes or do notes, and I hit my Word document, the Word icon, and you know what it came up to say? Create. You and I, and on that piece of paper that you have right now with all the notes on there, I created that. There was nothing on the paper before, but I chose to create. And this is what you and I do, and this is what you and I have, and this is what you and I have as responsibility, is to create. But not just create, we also have the responsibility to make sure that we restrain or constrain the people, ourselves and people around us, to make sure that we keep to the vision with clarity. So today we're going to get into week 4. Last week we went into the brain and how we have to, as leaders, create an environment or atmosphere for people to work properly so their brains can work properly. But today I want to break it down a little bit more, and there's a lot of questions on this one. So we're definitely going to be doing our week thing where we break off, and you're going to be able to do some team stuff. How many of you enjoy the team stuff, or you just would rather have the training? Like the team? Thank you, Pastor Aaron. That was very encouraging. Pastors online, do you like the team things that we're doing? You can actually take these notes and use them with your team. So working at a team is the utmost priority if we're going to actually see the vision done. I was just talking to our staff, and we went through the factor of corporate structure demands team of teams. So we should be able to go to the second tier team levels, and they should be training people the same way the first tier are, because the leader is. So it's a constant flow of the waterfall to be able to produce the greatest level and capacity that we have. God's design is to see utmost success, but that cannot happen if it's just one person. We must all work together. We must all flow together, and we must all make sure that our brains are on the same level. You know, what do we mean by brains on the same? Not that we're going to think the same, because we're diverse, but in the essence to where we are in the process of creation, we're in the process of maturation, and we're in the process to where we're constantly making sure that we don't go where we're not supposed to be. So when one person is pulling in one direction in our brains, what ends up happening is you end up having diversity, which is not positive. You never have forward motion because everyone's going in their own direction. So the necessity of creating a one brain process is what the Bible calls unity. And every single time you've seen unity, you've always seen a mass of success. Massive success is when you actually will see a group of people moving towards the same goal. And I love what God said about the Tower of Babel. If man puts his mind to anything, there's nothing he can't do. The problem is we're seeing a lot of churches, a lot of ministries, a lot of departments that are remaining the same size. Now, listen, the Bible says don't despise small beginnings. There's nothing wrong with small beginnings, but if you're remaining small, then there's a problem. If you're remaining small, then there's a problem. If you're remaining small, then there's a problem. That just simply means that there is not unity, or the vision is not a full clarity, so people are not moving in the same direction. And ultimately, you don't need a lot of people. Jesus had 12, and one was a traitor. He actually only had 11 that moved the entire gospel across the entire planet. So even the amount of people in this room, if we get one thing in mind, then just in our region, how can the church not overtake our region? See, this is the mindset that has to be bred within the hearts of the people, because we have many brains saying they're one brain, and it's not true. The goal is bringing everybody into one thought, one movement, one flow. Instead of having so much diversity, there's really only one. Now, there is one vision. Every department has a vision within the vision, but it all does one thing, the vision. If there's a vision outside of the vision, then it's division and brings death. So you have people that move in pulling in their own ways, which means forward motion is ceased. But you also have people that aren't pulling at all. And they're just sitting there. They're lazy. And that means forward momentum has either stopped or has slowed. So as a group of people, it's a full necessity that we are focused with full clarity, inhibiting and also learning how to be more productive so the flywheel can get faster and faster and faster. And that's what I love about it, is when you really have this planned out well, then you don't have to work that hard. I'll say it again. Amen. You really don't have to work that's really overwhelmingly difficult. Work doesn't have to be a struggle every day you come in. Once momentum has begun, it really creates itself, because you've created a unit that is flowing as one. You know, every time you put your car in drive, you don't have to put your foot on the gas and on and off, on and off, on and off. You're putting it on, and it's creating a momentum to move you forward. Now, I did a large mistake. I stopped momentum one time in my 1970 Dodge Dart with a 1969 Belvedere Slant 6 engine in. I was trying to save money, bless you, and I was on my way to work as a high school student. I'm going down a big hill, and I decided I was going to save some gas money, so I threw it in neutral. We're cruising. I'm cruising down the highway, going down a hill. Momentum has me going really good. I'm getting down to the bottom of the hill, and I know that I've got to get momentum, got to keep it flowing. I got to get some gas to this engine. So I accidentally shifted it into reverse. The sounds were amazing. The grinding noise was awakening. And I slid it back into neutral as quickly as I could, but the car was never the same again for whatever reason. So the need to get it going in momentum is everything. So what does it look like when you have many brains moving as one brain? What does it look like when you have many departments moving as one department? This is where I'm just so proud of my team, and I just got to give a shout out to the pastors and leaders of His Tabernacle Family Church. You are phenomenal people. You really are. You are an amazing group of leaders, and I'm honored to be able to serve God with you, and know that even today's meeting just again recapitulated the reality of how great of leaders you actually are, and I'm honored to be working with. When the vision is clear, not foggy, then brains become one brain. You have what's called goal selection. They can choose goals based on priority, relevance, experience, and knowledge of current realities, while also anticipating consequences and outcomes. Keywords: choose goals and anticipate outcomes. One of the things that we realize is over the years of the study, when we start talking about plateaus are not bad. Plateaus mean that you've climbed to a place you've never been before. But the problem with a plateau is when you have not pre-planned how to get off that plateau. The longer you're on that plateau, the faster you are to lose momentum, and you'll start to digress rather than increase. So having this anticipated outcome is a necessity of not just your successes, but also of your failures. And also when you reach a level you've never been before, having a plan how to get off that plateau to continue and allow momentum not to cease, but to actually increase. Planning and organization. They can generate steps in a sequence of linear behaviors that will get them there, knowing that they will be needed along the way, including resources, create a strategy to pull it off. Keywords: generate behaviors and strategy. I'm going to bring this up now. I just got out of my leadership training that we did. We did a leadership training in the morning, which was just phenomenal, going through team of teams and how we're going to make sure we're, again, parroting each other and parroting the flow. So even how we train our teams is the same. But the week before, a few weeks before, I left the meeting and the team got together and had their own little meeting. Now, some pastors find that to be something that they wouldn't like. Personally, I absolutely trust my team. That's where a relationship steps in. Pastors, you will never have a brain or many brains moving as one until you, as the leader, have learned how to trust them. Now, that doesn't mean I always agree with them, but I've learned how to trust them. I've learned that if they sit in that meeting, I can trust that what they put together is one that is not only spirit-led, but also is intellectually based, to where as leaders, they will be able to move the vision forward. And I'm just so proud, again, to call them my staff. They've taken the entire rest of the year. Personally, I like this paper too. They've taken the entire rest of the year and actually sewed them together. Every major event has been sewed together to feed one off the other all the way to the end of the year. So it is actually a level of building blocks, not just an event. Just so excited as they walked me through today. And I was able to, again, I like the paper. I'm easily distracted. Walk through and see how they did this and how well it's put together and the organizational structure to it. And not just the structure, but also the pros and the cons and what we need to watch for and what needs to be changed. I'm so impressed with this. But this was done by my team. This was done not by me. I wasn't in the room. And it's showing exactly what I'm talking about today. Many brains moving as one brain. The next is initiation and persistence. They can begin to maintain and goal-directed behavior despite intrusions, distractions, or changes in demands of the task at hand. Keywords: begin and maintain behavior. We did a study here, I think it's been, 2 or 3 years, called DISC. How many remember the DISC? Yeah. Pastor Ober and I were just talking about this a little bit earlier. DISC is an interesting thing because what it does actually shows your behavior. It shows your nature and character and your strengths and your weaknesses. Tremendous study. And one of the things that we found, even at His Tabernacle Family Church, was we had a lot of, what was that letter? D's, a lot of D's. There were a lot of drivers. I was an I. Pastor Dan is an I. What were you? You're an I. And so we had a bunch of, in the DISC, but we were missing one. You remember what one we were missing? The C. What was that one? Huh? No? I don't think that's the terminology, is it? No, it was initiation. We have great ideas, but actually making it come to fruition. And that is one of the things, is identifying your gifts, identifying your talents. This helps all the multiple brains become one. Because really, one of the great gifts that Pastor Obi has is the ability of execution. And, we were able to see that in that process, to where we were missing, and he was the only one even close to it. There was really nobody else even close to that. Now, I believe that through maturation, we can all grow and build our skill level. But identifying the multiplicity of types of brains that are in the room and how we all think different, how we all move different, but yet as we're putting the brains together to become one, now everything starts to fit in its slot. My grandson, he is just the cutest kid in the world. I've got to show him. I'm sorry. I've got to show him. And hold on. I've got to take a picture of this so that I make sure that I can get back to that easy. Save the photos. But I've got to show my grandson. He is the cutest child in the world. Isn't my grandson so handsome? He is a handsome young man. Look at that. Look at that one. Oh, the next lifeguard. Of course, my granddaughter's beautiful too. But my grandson is so funny because, he hasn't done it real recently, but he had this toy that was his favorite. And it's one of those boxes, that have all the shapes and the colors. And he'd come up and he'd sit on my lap and his Bampy, Bampy, I want to play. And he'll say, dump it out. So I dumped them all the different shapes and the colors, you know, the stars and the half moons and da-da-da-da-da-da. And he's trying to fit them in their slot. And I'm trying to teach him his color, and this is the star, and this is the moon, and this is the, and it was really interesting. But what was more interesting, and how it even applies to what I'm talking about, was that all of those things were different. They were different colors, different shapes, different sizes. But when he was done, they were all in one place as one unit. And then he would say, Bampy, take the lid off. Take the lid off again and play it again. He just continued to play it and work and work and work and work. And I love that. But the truth is that as leaders, we've got to make sure that we take all of our diversities and put them in to become one brain. You're not fighting each other. You're building each other. Your perspective is unique. Your perspective is different. You can't think the same because you grew up differently. You grew up in different homes. You even lived a different life when it came to sin. Everything is different for you. That's the greatness of God's creation, is that when you come together in the multiplicity, we can see things from different facets of the diamond to make sure that we have the full structure. And now it makes sense for everybody moving together as one. Persistence is everything. That maintaining of behavior. The next one's called flexibility. They can exercise the ability to be adaptable, think strategically, solve problems by creating solutions as things change around them, shifting attention and plans as needed. You see, as you move as one brain, this has to happen. This does happen because all of a sudden, if you're tired, you know, I love the fact of being married, the two being joined together. You know what I mean? Because when one is weak, the other is strong. If you've been married for any period of time, it's rare that both are at the bottom at the same time. It's rare. And very bad if it is. You know, usually if one is struggling, the other one is up and they're pulling you. Vice versa. And then you get God in there, that 3 chord is not easily broken. But here we are, the necessity of making sure that we are flexible and maintainable, and that we are going to use each other's gifts. You know, Grace, you are an amazing young lady. Yeah. She is. Grace works in our youth department, and I don't want to call you a secretary, but what do you do exactly? Administration of the youth. And let me tell you, she is gifted. She really does run that department. Pastor Cody's over the department, but Grace runs the department. But I look at Grace in that office, and you know, she's quiet, but you know, she's not real out there, you know, running around the hallways. She's in that office, she's working. But let me tell you something about Grace. Grace loves people. When Grace gets around somebody who feels like they're struggling, that girl will pull them out. That girl will build them up. That girl will love them through. She will give up. She will sacrifice. Listen, she does administration, but she will sacrifice everything to love somebody. See, when you know that strength, then she's just not Grace sitting at a desk. She is a part of the brain that's making this entire thing working. Grace, we are just so proud and so blessed to have you at His Tabernacle Family Church. It's true. We must be flexible, but in the flexibility, have you ever had a staff member or one of the brains that are non-flexible? Who here struggles with being flexible? Thank you, Carl. I was waiting for your hand to go up. I was going to pick you up. You too? Miss Carla struggles with flexibility. She likes constant, consistent. She works in our financial department as well as administration. And again, His Tabernacle wouldn't be where it is today without Carla Vischer. And we're honored to have you on staff as well. She is phenomenal, and you all know that. But try to throw a curveball to Carla.
Getting better.
You are getting better. Some of you might not remember where she was, but I do. Glory to God. Yes, ma'am. It does. We both changed. We both changed. Flexibility is huge. It's huge. And you have to have that. I'm not talking, listen now, remember what this is talking about. It's not talking about you. It's about all the brains coming together to be one. You know, there's a need that when one struggles with flexibility, who's probably the most flexible person on our staff?
Probably me. I have to be.
Do you think so? Mackenzie's the most flexible?
I agree.
Yeah. Can I have a vote? Let's do Robert's rules. All in favor? All opposed? So carried. All right. So the need to understand your gifts. You know, do you and Carla get along together?
Yeah.
You do get along? Have you ever clashed when it came to some flexibility issues? Like maybe on a women's retreat? No?
I think I've clashed with myself inwardly.
The Bible says confession is good for the soul. All right, let's move on. All right. The next one is execution and goal attainment. They exhibit the ability to execute the plan within the limits of the time and other constraints. Now, how many of you know somebody on the team that is que sera, sera, whatever will be would be, time really doesn't matter? Pastor, you better raise your hand really quick. Thank you. Very good. Pastor Dan.
What?
Pastor Dan. He does, time is no big deal to Pastor Dan. Because this is your brain. So we're coming to remember now, this is our 4th week. Glory to God. What great growth we've had in Mansfield already. The new campus that's up and running. Pastor Dan's the pastor there. But, you know, the week before, I started hearing all these things that weren't done. And I'm thinking, it's his boat. That's exactly what I thought. I didn't say it. I said it in my head. It's his boat. He's going to sink if he sinks. But what's funny was, how many of you know people that time constraints and being on time is like their life? Who is it? Oh, that would happen to be you, wouldn't it? Brittany, would that be your name? Do you like to be on time, or do you like to be early? Early. You're usually here before I am. How many here know that Brittany wants things done punctually? Amen. Who else is like that? It drives you nuts.
Can I name a mom?
Yes, you can name your mom. Jen is one of those type of people. And again, we're so blessed to have you both. As I'm sitting in these meetings, I'm always just honored to be around great people. And you know what's interesting is I look at you two and you want things done and executed in a proper time. What's amazing is Jen never says that out loud. But you can see it in her demeanor. Can I hear an amen or oh my?
Amen.
But Pastor Dan, does Pastor Dan drive you nuts sometimes?
Absolutely.
You know, we have to talk about it because we're very much alike.
Yes, we are. I've actually gotten a little bit better. So let's move on. What I'm trying to show you here is basic, and it's simple though. But many times we overlook it, is the power of one. The power of the one brain, made up of the many brains. Because when flexibility is needed, Pastor Dan and Mackenzie are right there, and I know there are others that are in that zone. When we need to be steady, we can't shift, we can't deter, we cannot be distracted. Well, then I know I've got Carla, I've got Brittany, and I've got Jen. And I don't have to worry about it because if they have their way, they're tying somebody on the railroad tracks. That's just the way it's going to be. Out of love. So there's a need to know our strengths and our weaknesses as a team and as one brain. The multiplicity made into one. When we grasp this, my goodness, then we build off each other. We jump off each other. And you know what? We protect each other. I think that's the best part is because I'm an I, is the protecting of each other, because some people that are just logistically driven, like Pastor Obina Ebo, sometimes he doesn't think as much about the mindset of somebody's emotions that would get wrapped up in that. Because we've got to get this job done. There's execution that's necessary. Where that's the strengths that are in this, in the one brain. We've got to make sure that we celebrate that. We've got to celebrate this, because as we are many brains as one, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. So the last is called self-regulation. They use observation to monitor performance, self-judgment to evaluate performance, self-regulation to change in order to reach the goal. The key words would be monitor, evaluate, and regulate. I am 1,000, and you've heard me say it probably 20, 30 times. I am 1,000% sold now on emotional intelligence. Those EQ tests, they are not optional. They are mandatory. Why? Because most people are not self-regulating. Most people are not socially regulated. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and they're like a bomb. They blow themselves up. They don't blow anybody else up. It's like they swallow the bomb and poof. Here's the problem, is that they start making forward motion and they blow themselves up because they say stupid things, do stupid things, act a stupid way in a public arena. And it actually delineates their opportunity to have a strong voice and to be a stronger leader. You see, self-regulation is mandatory. And usually when I do an EQ test with people, this is what I find, that most people are not self-regulating. They're not. They don't regulate themselves well at all. And I challenge you to be a self-regulating person, to know why you do what you do, why you act the way you act, why you sit the way you sit, why you look the way you look, why you do what you do. Because whether you like it or not, if you're not going to be self-regulating, then you are going to not benefit. Come on now, you know what I'm talking about. You're not going to benefit the one brain. You're only going to suck away from the brain.
Is self-regulation and self-discipline the same thing?
Yes. Yep. Because if you can't discipline yourself, but the problem is that most people aren't even the first one, which is self-awareness. They're not even aware of why they do what they do. They're not aware of why they say what they say. They're not aware of even why they dress the way they dress. So how can they self-regulate? We don't mind telling everybody what everybody else is, but we don't really want to know who we are. Yes.
Wouldn't you say that self-discipline is the way that we self-regulate?
I don't think you can separate them, because you can't regulate without discipline.
But the result, I'm meaning of regulation as keeping something regular all the time. Consistency is everything.
Regulation more is that you have like a governor.
Right.
So like a lawnmower has a governor. Most of you don't realize that. Any riding lawnmower has a governor, because that motor can go faster than the little push button that says little rabbit on top. They go a lot faster than that. But what happens is they actually put a regulator. And I just found out even on the Harley Davidsons, there's a regulator on the motor of the Harleys. I didn't realize that. I wonder why I couldn't go to over 110. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it keeps you from over-accelerating. It keeps you at a cap. Self-regulation demands that you do not go over what's going to be self-destructive. But you can't do that without self-awareness. I am so sold on EQ. And I don't believe that I'm over accentuating it. In fact, pastors that are online today and those that will be watching in the future, we're at Empowering Pastors, we're now opening up a 2-weekend training for your church, for your pastors. You can fly me in. I'll come in for a fee. And what we'll do is we're going to do a weekend of EQ. So we'll do a Friday night with your staff and a Saturday with your staff, Saturday morning. And I'll fly out to be home here to preach at his tabernacle. And the first week will be, the first time I'll come with you will be on EQ. We'll do an EQ test on all your staff. We'll train them in their EQ. We'll train you how to self-regulate. We'll train you how as a team to become one brain. And then the next time you have me out, I will be the LQ. That is how to raise the leadership quotient by raising your emotional quotient within your staff. And we'll bring your staff to a whole nother level of success simply through those 2 weekends. It'll be worth every dollar. I remember when we spent about $25,000 to $30,000 to bring in my coach, and I looked at my board after it was done, and I said to them, was it worth it? And they looked at me and they said, worth every penny, Pastor, because we know we're going to be able to reach more people for Jesus. So I challenge you. You can get online, and you can either email. You can get online and email me at drspencer@empoweringpastors.com, or you can go to empoweringpastors.com, and you can send in a request. We'd love to come and help your church grow, help your staff mature. So self-regulation is a mandate. I don't know how many of you have ever done something stupid and you realize it after and it caused you issues. How many of you like doing that? How many of you have done the same thing more than once? Everybody else is a liar. How many of you have done it more than twice? Same thing. You look at it, you go, man, I know better. Listen, I'm talking like this is what I'm talking about with EQ. We've got to raise it. The next part is like setting boundaries. And we talked about this a little bit in the first week we did this, about setting boundaries. But it's not just setting boundaries in clarity, but also in what's not allowed. We know we've got to educate. And because you're ridiculously in charge, you have to bring clarity. You have to bring boundaries of what's not allowed. And you've got to bring the boundaries of what they've got to learn. Now, truthfully, all those that are watching online, thank you so much. You're watching because you want to. I have staff members in here that don't want to. But they don't have a choice because I've made this mandatory. I make this mandatory because I don't want them to have a choice. It's the same with our Bible school students. They don't have a choice. They've got to be in this class. Why? Well, because it's not allowed not to be in this class. Because I know even if you can get one thing a month, change 12 things a year, you will be so far in advance that you wouldn't even imagine how far ahead you are as a leader than the people that have been leading for 30 years that have never done any of this. If you cannot control yourself, then how will you be able to focus on the team? So here's some questions. We're almost done. As a leader, how am I staying focused and not sidetracked from the vision? So every one of you, your homework this week is to answer these questions. So take a photo when you're done, email it to me, text it to me when you're done this last page. Everybody online, if you're watching online and you do not have the notes, you can email us at drspencer@empoweringpastors.com. Pastor Obina-Ebo, is it online yet? Are those notes online on the website? They'll be on the website as well at www.empoweringpastors.com, and the notes will be on there from here. And this is, again, Dr. Cloud's book. But what specific boundaries, excuse me, one more time. How am I staying focused and not sidetracked from the vision? That's a question for every leader. Number two, what do I do to set as boundary so I am not pulled out of focus? How are you doing that? How am I making sure that new things, information, are not being funneled into my life? Are being funneled into my life. How are you receiving that fresh information? Number two, for your team. Now remember, if you can't regulate yourself, don't worry about your team, because they're all mocking you behind your back anyways. Because they're looking at your deficiencies, and they might not be saying it out loud, but they know it. And they're watching it. And they're paying attention to your deficiencies. Yeah, let's move on, because that's true. Here's for your team. What specific boundaries do I need to establish with the team that will keep them focused on the vision? What is clearly not acceptable, or the not direction that we are heading in? 3, how am I making sure my team is growing in the knowledge needed to enhance the focus? For the vision and strategy, Is my vision and strategy clear and communicated in a way that allows everyone in the organization to attend, inhibit, and move forward? Pastors that are online, that's a great question. If you're running a department, that's a great question for you. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it isn't? Can you take clear steps in the right direction? Do they know what activities belong to the vision and strategy and which do not? Do they know how what they control directly distributes that to that vision and strategy? The next, for the culture. For those who missed, the very first week is online as well of these notes, and in there is Samuel Chan's a short I'll say widget of his five. Let me see. What's the name of that book? Cracking Your Church's Culture Code. So there are 5 cultures that are identified in the first chapter or the first week of notes of this book that we've gone through. And I put in Samuel Chan so you could actually identify which culture your church is. Here's the questions for the culture. Am I proactively deciding what the key elements of my culture are going to be? Remember, you're the creator. Mackenzie, you're creating the culture for all 3 campuses. Do these elements directly drive the attainment of that vision? Are there ways that I keep them front and center so that they are attended to? What elements am I determined will not exist in the culture, and what is in the place to inhibit those from occurring? I'll give you one example. At his tabernacle, we don't allow gossip. First time we catch you gossiping, we're going to encourage you not to do that. Second week we catch you gossiping, we're not going to be nice about it. Third time we catch you gossiping, we're asking you to leave the church. What exists right now in the culture that either slows down or prevents the vision from happening? So all these questions are extremely serious. From the top down. Now remember, your second-tier leaders should know exactly what you're writing down. If your second-tier leaders don't understand the vision clearly, then how in the world are they supposed to follow? They're just doing a job. I want to remind you, you're not called to do a job. You're called to raise up leaders. They do the job. Team of teams. If it's just doing a job, then when you die, there's a vacancy. True failure is no successor. In every department, every ministry. So I want to challenge you. Boundaries. What you create and what you allow. What have you created and what are you allowing? What have you created and what are you allowing? What have you created and what are you allowing? What have you created and what are you allowing? You can't blame anybody else. When there's a problem in this church because I've allowed something to happen that should not, that's nobody else's fault. You can't blame anybody but the leader. Even if it's second-tier level. So there's a need to make sure you are creating and only allowing those things which are going to enhance, build, and strengthen the organization and the ministry. Questions? Oh, you're either saying I'm an amazing teacher or you're not listening. You're thinking about it. That works. All right, here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to break up into sections. And I want you to cover in your questions. Yes.
Question online.
Yes.
Earlier you were talking about building trust with your team, and they want to know how long did it take to build that trust.
Woo! Pastor Aaron's you're the youngest. How long you been here? 2 years? Just over a year. Pastor Obi, you're after that, right? Yes. How long you been here?
Since, like, at the church on staff.
On staff.
Since 2014.
2014. How long you been at the church?
Since 2009.
2009. So the youngest is Pastor Aaron. I'm still learning, Pastor Aaron. There's no way for me not to be learning, Pastor Aaron. I do things to Pastor Aaron, and he doesn't know them because I'm testing him in certain areas. I say things to Pastor Aaron, which he doesn't even know that why I'm saying them, but I'm doing them because I'm doing a litmus test on him. What? Look it up. It's important that you know that Pastor Aaron, do I trust him? Absolutely. Because I'm not going to have somebody I don't trust, but is trust matured? Absolutely. Nothing against Pastor Aaron, but I trust Pastor Obi more than I trust Pastor Aaron. And that's only because Pastor Obi has been here on staff since 2014. He's been here 5 years on staff. I know I can trust him. And actually, was it 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, he came to a crossroads where there was a relationship that needed to end. And that was a struggle. But my trust level changed after that. It went to a whole nother level because of the choices he had to make. Pastor Dan's been with me. He was my armor bearer for 5 years. He's been with me 17 years. You've been on staff 9 years. I have a level of trust with him. You know, all of us, levels of trust are matured. But you don't ever put anybody on there that you have a question. If you haven't proven them, then they shouldn't be on staff. Because again, people are hired because of their gifts, their talents, and their resume. They're fired because of their EQ. So it's a matter of making sure you know who they are and grow in relationship with them. If I find that I can't trust a staff member, they don't last long. What I'll do is I will work them out of their job. I will fire them without them knowing they're being fired. Usually takes me 3 months. Questions? Intentional living is mandatory. That's where self-regulation is attained. Is you learn to live not on accident. Questions? Okay, what groups do we have here? Let me see. If you're going to break into groups, how many groups are there?
One group.
One. Pastor Cody, I want you to cover the vision and strategy. I want you to cover culture. Somebody else? Another group? Who's another group? You're another group. I want you to cover vision and strategy. You're another group. Very good. I want you to cover culture. The culture questions. Is there another group? I want you to cover culture. Okay? Break into your groups. Those that are online watching, thank you so very much. And we want to remind you to take these questions to your staff, have them work through them with you. It actually brings a revelation, Pastor, which is not always fun, but it's very important. A revelation of recognizing where things need to shift and change on your behalf. Remind you one more time, we are setting up now those EQ weekends as well as the LQ. So if you are interested in having us come in, no matter where you are, there'll be a fee, of course, because if you're not paying for something, then you don't respect it. So I want to make sure that we can come in and enhance and build your team. That's what we do. This is what we love to do, is build God's kingdom, build God's people, build God's leaders. And thank you for investing in yourself and being online.
Okay.